Hello, Cleveland, and welcome back to another edition of the Dogland Podcast. I'm your host, Jackson McCurry, and rolling with me, as always, is my co-host, Anthony Jokey. Anthony, how's it going, man?
I'm doing good. Tired, long day at work, but doesn't stop us from getting on here and having a wonderful chat about our Cleveland Browns.
No, sir, and it's our first victory pod of the 2022 season, even though it's preseason.
I don't
It's
I don't know about
preseason, but
that.
hey, it's preseason, and a win's a win, so we get to talk about it regardless. But
But the
yeah,
first unofficial victory pot of
okay,
the year.
that's fair. That's fair. But we're recording this on a Sunday night, but Friday night Browns preseason opener against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It was very sloppy at the beginning, but like we said, the Browns put it together. And while it's preseason, a win's a win, and the Browns took care of business down in Jacksonville, 24-13. Anthony, a lot to take away from this game, but yeah, it's always good to and come out of a road game and pick up the W.
Yeah, there's a lot, probably more bad than good to take
Yeah.
out of this game, but they did get the win. Um, it's certainly one of those ugly victories that unfortunately is going to cost us quite a bit this year.
Without a doubt. And, right at the beginning of the game, the second play of the game, you just knew something. It was bad because Nick Harris, um, his knee buckles on a play trying to hold up a defensive tackle, and he immediately goes to the ground. They have to cart him off the field. They still haven't diagnosed exactly what the injury said, but what the injury was. But Coach Stefanski said on Saturday that most likely it's season-ending knee injury for Nick Harris, and it's unfortunate because they let go of J.C. Treader in the offseason. Everything was going to Nick Harris being the center, taking over, which is big shoes to fill, obviously, for what Treader did for this organization for 4 or 5 seasons. But to see it go down that quickly, second play of a preseason game, like it's very unfortunate because Harris put in the work this offseason, is well documented on building the Browns, how he transformed his body to be ready for this, spent hours in the gym, changing his diet, everything. And all accounts where he was having a good camp, like the offensive line was clicking. And it's just unfortunate for a young player like Harris in his third season finally getting the opportunity to play and to see it all go to an abrupt halt.
Yeah, and one of the things we talked about on our last episode is, or at least I know I did, is I was really looking forward to watching him play. Like that was my main um, focus that I wanted to pay attention to, and fortunately, second play of the game, you lose them, and now Ethan Pochik is thrown into a role. Granted, he's been a starter before, so he has experience. But now uh, I don't know if he was expecting to be a starter here, but now he's thrown into that role, and now this offensive line just has to try to gel as quickly as possible. Thankfully, there's still a couple preseason games left, for them to work on things, but um, they have to throw it together relatively quickly.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't think anybody foreseen this, but they did sign Posick in free agency, on a 1 year deal. He was the starter for Seattle the last couple of years. PFF grades are average. Last year was his best year by far in terms of PFF grades. They also brought in Brock Hoffman and Dawson Deaton. Deaton they drafted in the seventh round. Hoffman they drafted, or he's an undrafted signing, but it just seems like they're going forward with Posick. There was, the buzz that could they bring J.C. Treader back? He's been brought up with a couple teams, Tampa Bay, because they lost their starting center. But even Joel Bitonio said today in his press conference with the media, he gets the sense that, with Treader being the president of the players union, there might be animosity towards him. And other presidents in the past I've seen, like sometimes these guys don't get picked up when they're free agents. Like teams just don't want to deal with it. I don't know if there's like animosity with towards being the president of the players union, but he's still unsigned. Obviously the injuries have taken a toll on Treader as well. So um, but it just seems like they're going to go forward with Posick, see what they got with the reserves. Michael Dunn's been a center as well, so he could make the team now as a backup center if he was on the bubble. So, um, I feel like they're going to be fine with Posick, especially when you got two All-Pro guards, but on each side, which should definitely make things easier for a guy like Posick. Would have made things a lot easier for Harris in his first full season, but um, not too worried yet about that position. And it helps that he's been taking a lot of snaps with Jacoby Brissett, so that chemistry is already there for whether it's the first 6 games or the whole season. So it's good that the quarterback center exchange it's already been working throughout camp so far.
Yeah, and the I guess the biggest thing is Poche was your depth at the position, and now he's your starter. So now behind him, you mentioned those couple guys there. Those two really need to step up and figure out, um, who's going to be his backup in case something happens. And like you said, though, having two All Pro guys such as Teller and Batonio on both sides does make it a lot easier. Um, so any sort of transition and stuff like that, I think will go relatively smoothly. For the offensive line, just thankfully because those two vets are so good. Um, it's highly unfortunate to lose Harris right away, but unfortunately in the NFL, it's always next man up, and you just got to roll with it.
Yeah, unfortunately, and hopefully, Harris recovers from the injury, whatever it is, and he's able to come back. Although, like next year, it's make or break year for him. Coming off an injury, it's going to be a contract year for him as well because it'll be year 4. Um, and him being obviously a late round pick, he's on a 4-year contract, so he's got to come back. And if he's the starting center, he's got to really show to whether it's the Browns or whatever team he moves forward to that he can be a starting center in this league. So it's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out for the young man as well. Anthony, we get to the game. Deshaun Watson, we did get to see him. No suspension yet. But so we got to see him for the first time in almost 2 years in an NFL game, albeit being a preseason game. And things just did not get off on the right foot for Watson and the Browns offense. They could not get in any sort of rhythm. His first throw was a rollout. He overthrew it to Anthony Schwartz. We'll get to Schwartz. Obviously, two extra balls thrown to him. Both were drops by Schwartz, and just the offense could not get into a rhythm at all. The second drive was stopped with a Dearness Johnson fumble. The offense just could not get into a rhythm, and it just did not look good. And obviously, the fans were booing, showing their dismay towards Deshaun Watson. But it's just the offense could not get into a rhythm, and it just was really sloppy those first couple drives for the Browns offense.
I don't even know if sloppy does it justice. To be completely honest, yeah, it did not look good. Um, we kind of figured there'd be some kind of rust that needed to be knocked off because he hasn't played um, since the end of the 2020 season. Um, so he looked very I don't know, anxious, I guess, on that first rollout. You could just tell that he wasn't calm at all, and I think that that's not surprising with everything that has transpired. So um, I don't know, if he's going to be able to play any of the rest of the preseason, or if that's all the game time he's going to get this year, depending on the suspension. Um, but it definitely wasn't an ideal showing, and having a turnover, a fumble, the second drive doesn't help either. When you only are able to complete one pass for 7 yards, um, in your return, I don't think the Browns coaching staff certainly saw that coming in terms of how the game shook out there early. Um, he's just going to have to continue to put in the work, and we'll see if he gets an opportunity to play anymore this preseason. I know they said today that they're going to be transitioning the first reps from Watson to Brissett from here on out. Because of the impending suspension. So we'll have to see if we see him again in preseason, and if not, This first game is definitely less than ideal of this type of work you wanted to see him get in.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, when you look at it, he didn't have Amari Cooper out there. He had Cooper or he had Njoku and Peoples Jones, but Peoples Jones didn't get a target. I think Njoku had the one catch that he connected with, and it was for 7 yards. Obviously didn't have Chubb and Hunt, didn't have Teller and Batonio. So it's really like people were criticizing him and judging his performance, and it was like, I mean, you can't really judge it when you don't have a bunch of your offensive line and all your skill weapons. Now that's no excuse, but at the same time, it is an excuse because you don't get to see what he can really do with all the talent surrounding him. And you brought up the whole Brissett thing. Like people were kind of shocked that he did not play, but I think this was all according to the plan that Stefanski and the offensive staff had, and I think Andrew Berry and company had a say in it as well. They are transitioning, like you said, to Brissett getting the majority of the reps. I think this is actually a perfect time. We got a month before the opener right now. You get him the majority of the first team reps. You're still sprinkling in Watson there. Even though we know he's not going to be there the first 6 games, potentially longer. I think this is perfect. Like, I don't expect him to play in the next preseason game against Philly. I think you're going to see Brissett working in these joint scrimmages that are coming up this week. And then they said he's going to play in the third preseason game. I think this is all according to plan. I think this is good. I think they all know that Brissett's the starting quarterback. He's being treated as such. And I think it's perfect how they're going about this plan now. I was kind of worried at first, but to see now the plan, now the ball rolling with the plan of treating Brissett as the starter, it all is starting to make sense why he didn't play, and now they're starting to make that transition.
Yeah, there's obviously there's the big plan for him to be the starter. I mean, if Watson's suspended a full season, that could change. But that right now you have to prepare with what you have, and uh, it'd be good to see Brissett out there next week. Maybe for a series or two, or maybe a little bit longer. It's weird because our whole timeline is thrown off because we used to have 4 preseason games, and you could always say that the third one was like the dress rehearsal. So is now the second one the dress rehearsal? Is it still the third one? It's just kind of like it's weird to figure out this new timeline. Because different coaches across the league are kind of treating it differently. There isn't really some sort of uniform way to approach it now, but it'll be good to see Brissett on the field. Hopefully, we could get Cooper out there, Teller and Batonio, and maybe just see the full first team offense out there for a couple drives and see how that works out. Um, there's some other people that I'm curious to see how they can be integrated into the main offense. We'll talk about them here shortly, but um, I think as of right now, they have a good plan ready to go, and it's just a matter of seeing if it works.
Without a doubt. So let's talk about Anthony Schwartz because he was a big focal point of Friday night's game for all the wrong reasons. I've always had high expectations for him since we drafted him coming out of Auburn. Obviously, his rookie year was not great by any means because of injuries and inconsistency. And I was hoping this year he'd come back and be better. And then Friday night just did not get off to the right start. The 2 drop passes. It's just I don't know what to make of him at this point. Now, I know that, maybe there's no how much chemistry and timing he's had with Watson's probably hasn't been much, but it's just he's like I don't know what to make of him. Like I want to say he's a lock to make this team because he was a high draft choice and he probably will make the team this year, but I just would like to see more strides out of him. Now today he had a good showing at practice, but like you need to start seeing it in games. Like he was a 3rd-round pick, and you look at the wide receivers, Anthony, that have been drafted in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd rounds over the last several years. Most of these guys are immediate impact guys. The Browns took a flyer on Schwartz because of his speed and athleticism. He's obviously was not a great route runner. And this is something that he's had to work on, but it's like we're looking at it now where if he's going to be the fourth or fifth receiver, we kind of need him to do a little more and show more, especially in the preseason when guys like Peoples Jones and Cooper aren't really being showcased. David Bell didn't play, obviously coming back from that foot injury. You would think we would see more and we expect more out of Anthony Schwartz. And it's just, it's making me wonder if this draft pick was a good one by Andrew Berry because we really haven't seen much out of him yet.
And it's unfortunate because last year early on he had those injuries and the concussion thing, and he just battled through last year with various things, and now he comes into training camp this year, fully healthy as far as we know, and
Well, no, because he was hurt at the
oh, that's
beginning of
right,
camp. Yeah.
that's right, yeah, he had that at the beginning of camp. So I mean, it's hard to judge him right now. Um, I think like you, I think he's locked to make the team just because of the lack of depth they have at receiver at this moment. His ability on special teams. Who knows what plan they're going to go with in terms of kick returner. It was Jamarcus Bradley back there. I think I saw for that one or for a couple of those kick returns early on. Um, but there's certainly a lot of things he has to prove, and it might be unfair. This just going to your second year with all the injuries and stuff that have happened already. But unfortunately, this is the NFL, and you have to produce. And I would tend to think if there's not much showing this year, then he definitely won't be, probably around for year three. And that's if he makes it through this year. So, you know, he needs to bounce back. And it's good you mentioned in practice today about how he had a good showing. I'm very curious to see how he bounces back from, this first week, maybe getting his, feet under him a little bit. Um, trying to heal up and everything. Hopefully he's able to bounce back and maybe propel himself into some kind of unique role because, like you mentioned, he is very athletic. He's definitely a speedy guy, so he could be, a game changer on offense if he can catch the football, and that's unfortunately been his biggest downfall. So he has to make the most of his opportunities, and whatever opportunity he does get, he just has to shine.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you mentioned Bradley getting the cracks at return. He had both kick returns, both punt returns. Hopefully, Schwartz can turn the corner at some point. The hands are definitely an issue. It's got to get that going. But we'll see. Like I'm not ready to give up on him. I know a lot of Browns fans were riding him just because they expected more out of him this year, but we'll see. It's a long season. Obviously, if he was one of our top three receivers, I think we would definitely be hitting the panic button right now. But he's our fourth or fifth guy right now, so not ready to hit the panic button just yet. But when you look at the whole wide receiver room, Anthony, Friday night, they did not perform that well. I mean, Dalen Baldwin, who is a guy down on the bubble, was our leading receiver out of the wide receivers at 3 catches, 25 yards. Javon Wims had a catch for 7. Jamarcus Bradley had a catch for 5 yards. Peoples Jones didn't get a target. Like, obviously, Cooper and Bell weren't there, but, it just, you got to wonder if they're in the front office or thinking, do we bring a veteran in? Do we bring in a Will Fuller or a Cole Beasley? Or we talked about it in the last episode. Like, are they going to keep giving the young guys an opportunity, or are they just going to finally, after maybe this week, if none of these guys show out against the Eagles in the joint practices or the preseason game, like, do they finally say, hey, let's go get one of these veterans and, give us some surefire options in that wide receiver room?
Yeah, because heaven forbid something happened to Amari Cooper or David Njoku.
Don't
You
say
know,
that.
they're one injury away from it just being a complete disaster in
For
terms
sure.
of with the receiving core. And I'm throwing Njoku in there because I think that's how he was going to be mainly utilized this season. It's unfortunate to think that way, but you can't always be thinking about injuries, but you kind of have to be prepared. Um, they're gonna have to find somebody somewhere, whether it's on their own team, somebody stepping up. Um, Baldwin did make a couple good grabs from what I saw, but he's also a rookie, so you really can't count too much on that. Um, it's just it's a tough situation to be in, and I know uh, if they did have their first rounder this year, they probably would have gone that route, but they obviously used it in the Deshaun Watson trade. Um, obviously going in next season, you don't have it as you don't have one as well. This year they have their second round pick, right? I think they traded the third rounder. So that's always certainly going to be a possibility. Going into next year's draft, I'm not sure about free agency, but yeah, they're kind of in a situation right now where somebody on the team has to step up, if not more than one guy. Otherwise, you're going to be plucking guys that are, uh, fourth, fifth, sixth off of somebody else's roster, come cut down time, and trying to insert them into, the mix that you already have now. So, um, the receiving group isn't in the best position, but on the bright side of it, at least you have two, three very good running backs on this team. A couple that are able to catch passes too, so you can do different things. Um, you do have a very good tight end as well. I think he's going to have a really good season this year, and Cooper does have a lot to prove. So I think that once he gets on the field, we're going to see quite a bit out of him.
Yeah, him and David Bell both, once they both get out on the field, because David Bell's got a lot to prove, because I think he got bumped down the boards because the speed and athleticism. But I mean, everybody, you and I both seen it at Purdue. Like, dude made play after play after play, especially in the big games. So, but once him and Cooper get out there, I think all the qualms about the wide receiver room are gonna cool down for a little bit. And oh,
I'll go ahead.
well, I was gonna say this week the Eagles are coming in. Jalen Rager's been a guy floated around in trade rumors. And the OBR wrote a great article about guys that could be on the trade market and among the wide receiver rooms, and Jalen Rager was one of them. So if the Browns are interested in him, they're going to get a close eye on him this week when they come into Berea.
Yeah, and that's great too. But unfortunately, with the receiving group, playing shuffleboard at quarterback doesn't help either. So,
No, I
you
don't
know,
think so. Yeah,
now that you're, fully committing to Brissett right now as, your starter, moving forward, with the suspension and everything, hopefully, things on offense can, start to gel together. Um, and these receivers can get, familiar with Brissett and everything, and hopefully it works out.
for sure, for sure. Uh, jump to some positives about the game. Jerome Ford. I mean, immediately, after the Dearness Johnson fumble, we got to see Jerome Ford, and it wasn't really talked about in camp all that much, just because he's the fourth running back in a very talented room. But he made the most of his opportunities on Friday night. 10 carries for 57 yards, including a 41-yard run that got him, towards the goal line. Then he was able to punch it in, but he showed that he can do it on the receiving end as well. He was the Browns' leading receiver with 4 catches for 45 yards and a touchdown. Um, Jerome Ford looked like he belonged on the NFL field. He averaged 5.7 yards per carry, showed he can do it out of the backfield. And, I tweeted this out Saturday morning. Whether they move Kareem Hunt or whether they move Dearness Johnson, I think towards the end of the camp, which is going to be a difficult decision either way, I think they feel really good about Jerome Ford, and they were able to get him in the 5th round, which was an absolute steal. So uh, the decision is going to be difficult, but I feel like Jerome Ford's going to make that easier on them because you're still going to be able to ease him in as a rookie, but he showed that he can make an impact on the football field in a variety of ways.
Yeah, he definitely did, and I very much enjoyed watching him this week. Play very very well, and this running back group that they have is probably the best in the league. To be completely honest, it's so well balanced, and they just have talent after talent at the position. So, if he's able to come in here and do different things, catch passes out of the backfield, break runs like he did on Friday night, it's going to be great for this team. It certainly does make a couple people expendable. Whether that's Hunt, whether that's Dearness, obviously not Nick Chubb. Uh, won't even entertain that thought. But it was nice to see him out on the field after hearing how good he's been throughout training camp, and then to see that translate to the field, out of your draft pick, is certainly a welcome sight.
There's a clip that Jake Burns tweeted out Sunday morning where you just see he cuts inside and then Ford was able to just shift and change direction instantly. And it's just like guys that can do that, just cut and then shift. And like he's got the speed too. Like he's amazing. Like, you know, I knew he was good, obviously watching him at Cincinnati, but seeing him with a backup offensive line creating holes and he's just able to jump cut and everything and just the speed to get away from guys. Like it's amazing. And like I just can't wait to watch him again this weekend against Philly. Like I've been so impressed with him. Like having him, like you said, whether it's him, Kareem or D'Ernest and Nick Chubb, like that's the best running back room in the NFL, bar none. Like people want to have that debate. Any Cleveland fan will say, "Hey, we got 3 guys that can beat you in a variety of ways on the football field." Like some running back rooms only have 1. We have 3, and right now we have 4 with the Ernest. So, I mean, it's going to be a difficult decision by Andrew Berry, but I don't think anybody's going to be mad when he has to make that decision.
No, no, there'll be the initial shock, but of it, but yeah, it's certainly not going to be a fun decision to have to make. And yeah, I think one of the things with Ford, um, people are surprised by his speed, but before Cincinnati, he was in the SEC, so obviously being down there, you have to have some kind of speed, especially at a position like running back. So um, I know that thought probably gets overlooked a little bit, with him coming from Cincinnati, being a grad transfer, I think it was going over there. So, he definitely has the speed, and it was nice to see it on full display.
It wasn't just the SEC either, Anthony. It was Alabama. I mean, that just says right there
Exactly.
he was a reserve at Alabama and then went to Cincinnati and just dominated. So I mean, yeah, I mean he's no fluke, he's no flash in the pan. Like obviously he was a highly touted recruit, going to Alabama and then transferring to Cincinnati to prove himself, and he definitely did that. He wasn't the only rookie that proved himself Friday night. There was a couple others that really flashed. We mentioned Cade York. He made all his kicks, so as expected. But the other rookies that stood out, Martin Emerson, our top draft choice, with the pick 6, and he was obvious, and he was PFF's top rated defender on the Browns. And then Isaiah Thomas, 2 sacks, and like he's the guy that gets overlooked in that room just because the Browns added a lot of depth this offseason to the edge room. But he made the most of his opportunity. I thought he played great, like the 2 sacks, but he was very disruptive all evening long against Jacksonville. Um, but the rookies really showed out Friday night, and that bodes well. Andrew Berry's been drafting well since he took over as the GM, and all those rookies made an immediate impact Friday night.
Yeah, it's very good to see, all those rookies make an impact. And, like I mentioned earlier, we didn't have a first round pick this year. So, picking from the second round on, you obviously want those guys to, have some sort of impact. And, in that first game, they were able to do so. Hopefully they can build upon that and continue to play well in whatever rotations that these coaches get them in on offense and defense. So I was very impressed with Emerson and that pick six he had, because he just straight up muscled that ball away from the receiver and took it the other way. He's a big dude. Like um the Seahawks were so good for so long with that secondary, because they had these bigger guys that were 6'1", 6'2", and had these really long arms.
And they were
Uh,
physical too. And
very they were
that's what I
very
noticed.
physical, and yeah, exactly. I noticed that he was physical too. Um, so hopefully, who knows? Maybe there's something there. If there is, you're looking at four cornerbacks. You got Denzel Ward, obviously. You have Greg Newsome, who they drafted in the first round last year. Greedy Williams in a contract year, who played very well on Friday night. And then you have Emerson. So those are four.
Don't forget AJ Green.
AJ Green too. So you got five guys that with all the talented receivers in the division and across the NFL, those are five guys that hopefully can definitely make an impact this season. Um, I think maybe Emerson could bring a little bit of physicality to that room. You can certainly tell how I think how much Greedy Williams wants it, and just let him ball out this year. I don't know if there's any room contract wise to resign him, but uh, this group I think can be very, very good. The secondary, maybe it's the deepest group besides running back on this team, and probably offensive line. But uh, they certainly have invested a lot into the secondary, and it's certainly paying off.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you look at the rookies as a whole, they don't none of these guys really have to come in and have to make an immediate impact outside of Cade York. Because Emerson,
And David Bell too.
oh, and
Too.
David Bell,
Yeah.
but he's the third wide receiver right now. So there's really not too much pressure on him. There is a little just because of the depth in the room. Cade York's obviously the kicker, and he seems like he's got no pressure on him at all, even though, people are trying to already crown him the next Phil Dawson. And, he just kind of shakes that off. But Emerson's the third or fourth corner right now. Not too much pressure on him. With Greedy and AJ Green there, and Newsome, obviously, and Denzel Ward. Perrion Winfrey, who I've seen a couple disruptions out of him. He's obviously got that dog in him, like he's been saying since he got drafted. Um, who are the other rookies? Mike Woods, obviously he's hurt, but there's not too much pressure on him because he's like the fifth or sixth wide receiver. But like none of these guys really have to make an immediate impact. Other draft classes in the past, Anthony, these guys have had to come in and be immediate impact guys, whether they're starters or rotational guys, and they were really hyped up. There's no real pressure on the majority of this draft class this year. They can ease into their roles, develop, and just don't have to hurry up and have to be those impact guys that we've all made other rookies in the past have to be.
And that's the best part about the state of the roster is, all these guys that they brought in and draft this year, like you mentioned, they don't have there's no pressure, as opposed to in years past. And when you don't have the pressure, they're able to relax, they're able to learn, they're able to focus. They're able to sit and watch, because there's very talented players in front of them in most of these positions. Like um, Alex Wright, you got Miles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney in front of you. So what better two players to watch? So uh, there's a lot of talent on this football team, and thankfully, the class can sit there and watch, and maybe push these guys quite a bit to be better.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think the state of the roster is in really good shape when you're able to do that. So, except maybe receiver, but we've discussed that already. But being the roster being in the position that it is in right now is why the Browns are picked to win so many games, and obviously the quarterback thing. But um, this is a very talented roster from top to bottom, and when you get rookies that uh, could potentially make an impact, it makes it even better. So this team on paper is really good. It just has to translate onto the field this year.
Without a doubt. Was there anybody else Friday night that really stood out to you, or just you thought had a rough going and there's like a concern like I don't know if this guy might be on the bubble, this guy's definitely not making the roster. Like, did anybody stand out in a good way or a bad way?
Um, I don't think so in a bad way. I know there is a kicking battle with the punts, with the punter. I thought both guys did a decent job for the 4 total punts that they did have. Um, you know, there's certainly a ton of position battles. I watched the interior defensive line, and you saw guys like Tommy Togiai get in there, Perion Winfrey. So I just wanted to continue to see those guys do a good job, and hopefully show something, this season, because there's certainly that question mark there. So I just want to continue to see those guys perform well.
Yeah, for me, D'Anthony Bell, who is one of our reserve safeties, I thought he had a great showing out Friday night. He had a really big hit, and he also, I think, had a forced fumble. I think he punched the ball out, the peanut punch, as you know, from Peanut Tillman from the Bears. I thought he had a really good showing. I thought Tony Fields was like our first action. We got to see him as a linebacker. I thought he played well. Um, Offensively, was it Ben Petrula, who's one of the undrafted free agents? He was playing right tackle. I do not see him making this team at all by any means as a reserve. Obviously, Chris Hubbard's there, Jack Conklin's there, so there really wasn't a spot for him. Maybe he makes the practice squad, but I thought he got obliterated. He was just kept like Josh Dobbs had like no time to throw sometimes just because Petrula was getting messed up. And I mentioned Josh Dobbs. I thought he played well. He's been a backup in Pittsburgh the last few years. Didn't see him much outside of like a wildcat offense where he would run because he is dynamic that way. But I thought he played extremely well as the backup quarterback Friday night. I thought Josh Rosen even played well too. But Josh Dobbs for a guy that's only thrown like 18 passes in his NFL career, he looked the part of a backup quarterback. Now, I don't want to see him out there by any means this season, whether unless it's victory formation, but I thought he did really well, leading the offense, commanding the offense, driving them down for touchdown drives. He did his part, and that was one of the guys that really stood out to me Friday night.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of guys on this roster that got to have to prove things, and to see those guys be able to contribute a little bit. What were your thoughts on Griffin Stewart? He did have a few catches. There's certainly the backup tight end. I don't. I guess maybe the third tight end,
Yeah,
third and fourth tight ends are up for grabs. He had a few catches. Do you have any thoughts on that?
yeah. I mean, he played well, but I just think like I don't know if tight end three's on the roster yet. It might be him. It might be Miller Forrestall. I was hoping to see more out of Santos Silva. Didn't. Maybe we'll see him more this week against Philly, and then obviously the final preseason game. But I just still think that's up in the air. I mean, Griffin Stewart was with Minnesota. He's floated around the league a little bit. Maybe he's the third tight end. But I just still feel like that guy's not on the roster yet. I could be wrong, but I just nothing really stood out. I keep thinking maybe Johnny Stant makes the team as the third tight end. I mean, he's not big enough. He's only 6'2", but last year and this year, when they threw him the ball in the preseason, he made plays. He made catches. He had a 20-yard catch Friday night. We know what he can do as a blocker. Maybe they carry 4 tight ends. I doubt it. We're gonna have to do a roster prediction episode here in the next week or two. But I still feel like that position's to be determined still. And I don't know if tight end 3 is on the roster just yet.
I guess it depends on how the rest of the wide receiver room shakes out. If they have to add a couple guys, or if a couple guys that they have now just don't make it. Um, because we know that Stefanski does enjoy having multiple tight ends and using them. So they just have to, find a couple of these guys. And I think you're right with Stanton. I think he probably will make this team. Um, he can carve out a nice role in blocking, for the run, even pass blocking, and using him in pass situations at certain times. So there's definitely and a good opportunity here for him. And I like you. I think he will make this team as well.
And the one final thing I want to bring up, because we talked about Isaiah Thomas, Chris Odom made a sack. Isaac Rochelle, easy for me to say. He had a sack as well. I think the edge room is going to be interesting because obviously we know Clowney and Garrett are going to make it. I'm not penciling in Chase Winovich yet. I didn't see much out of him. I saw more out of the other guys. So I think that room's going to be interesting. They were probably hoping Isaiah Thomas could slide into a practice squad, but if he keeps playing the way he did Friday night, he probably won't. So that's why I think the edge room is going to get interesting, especially if he keeps playing. Winovich, we got to see more. There may be a reason why Belichick was willing to flip him for Mac Wilson, who played well for New England. So I think it's going to be something to watch because obviously Alex Wright's going to be in. So who's going to be edge 4 and who's going to be edge 5? Because I think there's some guys in there that are going to make a case these next couple of weeks of preseason and training camp.
Yeah, and it also depends on how that defensive interior shakes out too. If a couple of those guys, that are listed on as defensive ends can, bump inside for a down or two in certain situations. Maybe they keep, 5 or 6 of those defensive ends as opposed to maybe only 4 of the interior guys. So it's just a matter of figuring out the numbers game. Like you mentioned, we'll have to do a roster prediction here. Maybe next week after the second preseason game, kind of break that down a little bit.
For sure. As we wrap things up, Anthony, is there anything else you want to hit on?
Um, Nothing Brown specific, but just a mini 5-second rant.
Go ahead.
Can we stop with the super over the top preseason reactions? Because it wasn't only the Browns fans, but it was just being on Twitter, and that's probably my own fault.
It's on Facebook too. It's
okay.
everywhere.
I mean, these guys are playing their first preseason game. It's a glorified scrimmage, and we're sitting here overreacting like crazy, and it's just absolutely unnecessary. And y'all need to find something better else to do with your time if you can have to sit there and just go absolutely crazy after 2 snaps in the preseason.
What do you mean? Kenny Pickett's going to the Hall of Fame now, Anthony.
Oh,
He had a
God.
game-winning drive.
Well, that bode well for my dynasty fantasy football team. But other than that, you know, I just very tired of seeing those overreactions.
I agree with you because I seen people say like, "Oh, David Bell better be good." Like, I know like Pickens and Sky Moore and these other receivers that were drafted around pick 44 when the Browns obviously moved down. Like, they had good games, but Sky Moore has like I think Mahomes was playing. I think he had Mahomes throwing it to him. Like, Mahomes makes receivers look really damn good. He's a great quarterback. He's probably the best one in the league. But like, can we pump the brakes just a little bit and relax? It's a preseason game. Like, Brandon Weeden had great preseason games. Terrell Pryor tore up the league in preseason. Like, we could probably make a preseason heroes team, Anthony, of like guys that balled out in the preseason and never did anything in the league. Like,
Oh, we could do that with just the Browns for
that's what
sure.
I'm saying. Like, Thaddeus Lewis is the Browns preseason quarterback.
Hey,
James Davis, the
he
running
did
back.
have those couple good regular season games, so
He did.
I'll
He
give him
did.
those.
But it's just the overreaction. It's like, and like, I was so glad. Like, Friday night, I went to a Rubber Ducks game. Like, I seen Nick Harris got carted off, and I was like, I put my phone away and I watched the baseball game, and I was like, I'm glad I'm not home watching the game because I probably would have been freaking out. But after watching it Saturday morning, I was like, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay.
It'll all be all right.
All right.
Can I throw in a Brandon Whedon stat that I saw that just makes things really funny? I
Please
think I
go.
shared it to our.
Just go ahead because I know you. Everybody
I
wants to pick on me for liking Brandon Whedon, so just give it to me.
so I saw all four AFC North quarterbacks are younger right now than Brandon Whedon was when he was drafted and the Browns started him. So that's
I
a
did see
great
that.
that's a great statistic.
It's the changing of the guards of the AFC North. We got all the young kids are taking over the division now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Which is funny because even Trubisky's younger and he's been in the league for a while.
6 year 17 6. Oh, this is no year 5 because or no, this is year 6 because this is year 6 for no, I don't remember. It's our sixth season. Okay, it's his sixth season. So yeah, you're right. Because we've been doing this 5 years and it's our sixth Brown season we've covered, and that was his rookie year. So and
Yeah,
Watson's rookie year too.
yeah, crazy.
So as we wrap things up, you guys can follow Anthony on Twitter at Anthony Jokey. You can follow me on Twitter at Jack McCurry08 and the Dogland at the Dogland. Um, if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to leave us a review, follow us, subscribe, share with your friends and family. We'll be back later this week with some more content to get you guys ready for Browns Eagles preseason. We'll talk about the joint scrimmages and all that as well. And as we get on out of here, as always, go Browns.